If you're hurt, injured, don't waste time. Gary Johnson cries for every dime.
Welcome to Simply the Law of Life, a program created by attorney Gary C. Johnson. Simply the Law of Life provides free legal advice and encourages happiness and quality of life. Now, here's Simply the Law of Life with Gary C. Johnson and Keith Casebolt.
Keith Casebolt along with my friend Gary C. Johnson. Gary, we have done television programs, Simply the Law, but at the same time we were doing a program called Simply the Law of Life on radio. This is the radio program.
Amen.
Even though we've got cameras rolling, and you and I got into this radio program, Simply the Law of Life, and if you look at the table, look at all these books. These books are what you and I have been in search of for the past 20-some years together, of trying to find peace and happiness in this little world that we're living in.
The difficulty that we all have is how do we keep the thoughts in our head from making us miserable? How do we keep from worrying about all the things that's going to happen? How do we say, well, this really doesn't matter. I'm alive and I've got all of these wonderful things. So I turned 50 years ago, over 50 years ago, in law school, to this book right here.
See, you've got the updated version. Look, this book was given to me by you. And when you gave me this book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, you told me something that I found out to be true. You said, Keith, the people that need this book, really need it, won't read it. But the people who kind of already get it will dive into it, they'll read it 5, 10 times over, they'll buy it, they'll give it to friends.
They'll recommend it to everyone.
They'll recommend it to everybody because it makes a difference in your life.
And the book is simply the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, written in the 30s. The man was a genius. This book should be titled, How to Make You a Better and Happier Human Being.
How surprising is it to you that this book was written in the 30s, but here we are in 2022, and to me, this book is more relevant and more needed. In fact, I think on one of our programs you said it ought to be mandatory that this book be taught in our school systems.
There's 2 books that I've run into that I think, one of them that I think ought to be mandatory in school, in high school, that all high schoolers have to read and discuss in their class, is How to Stop Thinking by Nancy Collier, because she has some wonderful thoughts and ways to deal with that voice in our head. Now, my friends, let me tell you, that voice in our head is a big deal. It is a huge deal. It does not shut up like it's supposed to, and it will lead you in places, it'll lead you into darkness. And you need to understand that, and you need to be able to deal with it. And she's got some really good points about, well, maybe you could just start witnessing it and step back from it. When it starts all of those things, it's going to cause regret. All the things, how many of you, my friends, right now are thinking about regrets? All these huge regrets you have in life that you can't change.
If I could only go back, if I could only do it over, if I could just make amends with the person that hates me.
And you can't do it. And yet we spend all of this time being totally miserable, my friends, over something you can't change. Well, how do you stop that? There's a lot of self-help books out there, bunch of them. And you know what? Most of them have something in them that is of some benefit. It's like Dale Carnegie, this book has now been upgraded for the digital age. Okay, they brought it up to date with how to make it relevant, the teachings, but they're the same thing as in this old book.
And Gary, before you go any farther, somebody might say, okay, we're watching you, you're talking about happiness. Most people are happy. That's not true. In fact, you've got another one of our books that we talk about, Think and Grow Rich, And you just gave me a statistic on the amount of people that are absolutely miserable, and I was blown away by it.
They're not absolutely miserable.
But they're miserable.
Napoleon Hill,
Yeah.
it's not in this book, but in another book he wrote. This book is Think and Grow Rich. Concluded that 98% of the population, 98%, are not happy. They're not necessarily really miserable, but they're not happy. Now, how many of you believe that out there?
Well, I would have questioned you on that until we saw the report of Elon Musk, the world's richest man, who said that this year, the last year, he dealt with depression and that he was completely unhappy. So I'm sitting here with you thinking, here's the guy that's the richest guy in the world, which we think money solves all problems. Obviously it doesn't. But he has the same problem of being happy and the same problem of depression as the guy who is penniless, maybe picking up garbage on the side of the road. They're both still in the same boat.
No, they're not. The guy that's penniless, picking up garbage on the road, may be happier. And I'm serious when I say that.
I understand what you're talking about.
If you are content with who you are, then you can stand a really good chance of being happy. Let me talk to you about another book by Breen Brown, and it's called I Thought It Was Just Me, but It Isn't. This lady spent her life researching, believe it or not, shame.
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 So you're talking about from your birthright, where you were born, where you come from, your education, the zeros that are on your checkbook, your identity, your physical makeup, all the things that makes us feel inferior?
Yeah.
Because you just said something very important. You said, if you are content with who you are. Why is it in this day and time that we are constantly searching for someone to validate us and say it's okay to be you?
I'm going to read you just a section of what she says. The constant struggle to feel accepted and worthy is unrelenting. We put so much of our time and energy into making sure that we meet everyone's expectations and into caring about what other people think of us that we are often left feeling angry, resentful, and fearful. Sometimes we turn these emotions inward and convince ourselves that we are bad and that maybe we deserve the rejection that we so desperately fear. Other times we lash out, we scream at our partners and children for no apparent reason, or we make a cutting comment to a friend or colleague. Either way, in the end, we are left feeling exhausted, overwhelmed, and alone. Now think about that.
So let's go back to the early days of school, when you went out on the playground, when we were in elementary, and these kids were playing dodgeball and you didn't get picked.
Then shame takes over.
So shame takes over that you're not in the group that's playing dodgeball because you didn't get asked, or you didn't get asked to sit at the special lunchroom table and eat with the clique.
Well, she says, shame forces us to put so much value on what other people think that we lose ourselves in the process of trying to meet everyone else's expectations.
Gary and you and I were doing a radio program. We were talking about a case, and many people may have seen it in the news, where a young lady is suing because she was bullied on Facebook. And I asked you on the program, what should she have done? And you came out with that immortal wisdom that you have and said, stop reading Facebook.
Get off of Facebook.
Back to the lady that used to take the calls and the guy was harassing her, and you said, stop answering the phone.
You know, years ago when I was county attorney, and I'm in Pike County, and I mean years ago, this woman called me and she started telling me about this man and all the horrible things he was saying to her. I said, well, where are you seeing him? She says, well, he's calling on the phone. She said, what can I do about it? I said, well, did you ever think about maybe hanging up? And she said, can I do that?
So she felt compelled to listen to this guy even though it was negative. So now, why would we give anybody that power to write about us on Facebook or say something negative about us and us try to convince them differently?
Or even pay any attention to it. But we do.
So you're taking the attitude.
We do.
If someone says, Keith, I don't like you, I should be able to say, you have every right not to like me, and I don't blame you.
And then you'll go, boy, I wonder why they don't like me. Blah, 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 blah. I wonder why this. I wonder why that.
What did I ever do to them?
Yeah, how can I fix this?
Don't they know I'm a good person?
Yeah.
I mean, and then you start rattling it off. I do this, I do this. You're trying to win a battle that you should never enter into to fight.
And then one you can't win. You need every one of you, my friends, every single one of you is special. You are exactly the way the infinite intelligence of this universe meant for you to be. Period.
So there's someone that's either listening to the program on the radio, watching us on Facebook right now, or YouTube or television, wherever this program is at, and this someone is saying, but Gary, I've been beat down. I have been put down. And you are telling them they can withdraw permission at any time and straighten their shoulders and stand up and say, how dare you put me down?
They don't need to say anything.
Don't even acknowledge it.
All they need to do is understand. My friends, all you need to do is understand your own worth. You are as good as anyone else in the world. The downside to that is you aren't any better than anyone else in the world. Okay?
You know, to our viewers and listeners right now, somebody might say, oh, Gary, you and Keith got it figured out. No. Why do you think we're sitting here with these books? It still pops up, and we still fall back into the same old habits of worrying, of thinking, of getting depressed, of being afraid. It pops up on a daily basis.
It's being human. There's no other way to say it. As human beings, we are so complicated. And until each of you learns to deal with those, I call it the chatterbox over the years in our head, that thing that never shuts up, you will have a problem of having the identity you need that's you. Now, I'm going to refer you to another book. Okay? This is The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy. There's some good stuff in this book about the power that you have inside of you that you don't even know you've got. How many times, Keith, over the years have I told you that if you take a problem and you turn it over to your subconscious, that it will solve it for you?
You explained that to me, and it works like magic. And you told me you will be asleep and maybe wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and the answer will come to you. I've always thought that was luck. I didn't realize luck had nothing to do with it. Once you turned it over to the subconscious, it started working on it 24/7 until it figured it out.
Your subconscious, and I may sound a little crazy here, but it's okay. We all are, right, my friends? A little bit of crazy in us.
Join the club.
There is an infinite intelligence in the universe, which we call and refer to generally as God. That infinite intelligence is everywhere. God isn't just some way off in the thing that looks shape of a man or whatever. God is infinite.
He's inside you.
He's inside you. And you are in contact with that infinite intelligence of the universe. Well, how do you contact it? Well, it's through your subconscious. There's no other way to do it. You can't do it consciously. We don't have that ability to do that consciously. But your subconscious, if you will let it will guide you in the direction you need to go. It'll tell you. Some people call it instinct. Huh? Where'd that instinct come from? Huh?
Yeah.
Where did that intuition come from? Where did that thing that says, I'm not going to take this next step before a snake bites you?
Oh.
Where did all that come from?
I had a gut feeling about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just had a feeling that this was the wrong thing to do or the wrong time to do it.
I'm going to read you just a couple of highlight things where he says highlights in this book so you'll get some idea of what I'm talking about. I'm going to read very little. Think good and good follows. Think evil and evil follows. What you are thinking all day long follows. Your subconscious mind does not argue with you. It accepts what your subconscious mind decrees. It has no choice. If you say, I can't afford it, you will not be able to afford it. But if you say, I'm going to figure out a way that I can get this, your subconscious will help you get that. You have the power to choose. Choose health and happiness. Or you can choose misery. You can choose to be friendly or you can choose to be unfriendly. You can choose to be cooperative, joyous, friendly, lovable, and the whole world will respond. This is the best way to develop a wonderful personality. That's your choice. Your conscious mind is the watchman at the gate. Its chief function is to protect your subconscious mind from false impressions. Choose to believe that something good can happen, and it's happening now. Your greatest power is your capacity to choose. Please choose happiness and abundance rather than misery.
Now, you know what I find fascinating about what you just read? Right now, we had two people make a decision that's either listening or watching this program. The one person said, I want to be happy, and I'm going to follow this program, and I'm going to go through these books with these guys, and I'm going to be in search of happiness because I'm choosing to do it, and damn it, I deserve it. But there was somebody else that said, oh, this is a bunch of bull, I'm going to click off. And they've turned the channel or they've clicked off, and they have already predicted what is going to happen to their future. Negativity.
Absolutely. I strongly recommend, my friends, and I'm not trying to sell this book, I get nothing out of it, that you buy this book, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. If you can't afford it, let me know at Gary@GaryCJohnson.com, and together we'll figure out how you can get a copy of it or at least find out what's in it.
Gary, over the years, how many copies of these have you bought and given away?
Thousands.
This is my copy that you gave me when you and I started doing the radio program. You gave me this copy of this book, and for years you gave away copies of these to everybody to try and change their lives.
If you've picked this book up and started reading it, and you've tossed it aside, go get it again, because you are the person that needs it the most. People that are already doing a lot of the things that's in this book will take this book and use it as a guide and as a tool to help them be a better person. This man was a genius when he wrote this book about human nature. If you read this book, it made me the lawyer I am today. I can say that unequivocally.
Let's talk about that for a second, because somebody is thinking, all right, here's Gary C. Johnson, highly successful personal injury attorney. Why are you talking about this? Is it because you figured out that a broken leg or a broken back was painful, but there is nothing like the pain of a broken spirit?
The psychological part of our lives, that part of us, who we are, is where most of our pain comes from. A broken arm, or like my broken shoulder that I had, they heal. Psychologically, it's a different story.
So to prove a point, let's go back to elementary school again. The kid that punched you in the nose, I'm sure you've forgiven that kid. But the kid that said something really nasty to you and hurt your feelings, more than likely you've kept a grudge for 40 plus years.
I've taught lawyers over the years all across the country. I've been to California, I've been to Seattle, Washington, I've been to Florida, I've been all over.
You're that Johnny Cash song, I've been everywhere, man.
Teaching other lawyers about how to practice law. one of the first things I put up on the PowerPoint slide is a picture of this book, Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I tell them this is the greatest book on trial advocacy that's ever been written, because it teaches you how to think before you open your mouth, and it teaches you how to be a human being. And if you can't be a human being, you can't practice law.
Is the other thing this book teaches you is the reverence for life and the respect of your fellow human beings?
It is. It's putting the old Indian Mexican story where that if you've not been in that Indian's Mexican, you don't know what that Indian's going through, and that's what he's trying to tell you.
Yeah. So we make assumptions and we prejudge, and we're without knowing the facts about what's going on in someone's life.
It is an epidemic of the judgments that people make without any information to make those judgments on. We do it all the time. It's almost like we're breathing. We have to breathe, so we have to make a judgment.
It was my duty to tell them that they were wrong. I had to get on Facebook and tell everybody that they're wrong and how right I am.
Let me give you an example in this book. He has an entire chapter on arguing. And at the end of it, he plainly says, there is only one possible way you can ever win an argument. And it's don't argue. Because even if you win that argument, even if you win it in your mind, the other person is going to be so angry and mad at you and put down by you that you will never overcome how they feel about you. You win the argument, but you lose.
There are family members right now that haven't spoken to each other in years because they argued over politics. They argued over religion. And because one side dug in, the other dug in, and now they don't speak to each other because they have a difference of opinion.
So those of you that are absolutely certain that you're right on something, that the science backs you up or whatever it is, okay? You're 100% positive you're right, okay? So was the doctors that used leeches to treat people. Okay?
Well, what about our great President Abraham Lincoln? When he was shot, the greatest minds in the world, the doctors, what did they do? They bled him and gave him a shot of whiskey. Now,
I can go along with the shot of whiskey.
The shot of whiskey may have helped, but the bleeding didn't help him at all. But
probably killed him.
Yeah, so that was the most intelligent people we had. And you're saying right now, if we think we've got it figured out, 50 years from now, they'll look back at us and go, you guys were doing what?
One other thought I will pass along to you folks before we end this show, and it's this. Never, ever fight a principle battle. And you're saying, Gary, you're crazy. You've got to stand on your principles. You've got to fight these principle battles, okay? And let me tell you why you don't ever fight a principle battle. You may be wrong. You think you're not. You're positive you're not. But what if you are?
Yeah.
What harm have you caused and done standing on that principle and fighting them? You can have that principle and you can believe that principle, but don't get in a fight over it.
How many?
I know for a fact I did it once and I was wrong. Okay?
How many times have we defended someone saying, I know that they're innocent, only to find out they were guilty? Listen, I loved Pete Rose, the baseball player. He said he didn't bet on baseball. I defended him all the time. I said he's the greatest player in baseball. If he said he didn't do it, he didn't do it. He came out with a book that said, I bet on baseball. But I defended him.
Of course you did. Well, that's a minor thing. I'm talking about the big things in life. Just remember, folks, this is what Dale Carnegie says too. Everything that anyone does, even especially You think it's what you ought to do at the time, or you wouldn't do it. Now that other person is saying, that's doing it, they believe that's what they ought to do, or they wouldn't be doing it. How many times have you know of anybody that's ever stood up and says, boy, I'm going to go out and be mean today?
There's some people who are not wired right to do that, but the majority of our people want to live a good life and have a good life.
Or how many times has anybody said, well, I'm just going to go out and hurt somebody today? Now, if somebody's not wired right, yes, they could say that. But normal people, you wouldn't be watching this program if you were wired that way.
Yeah.
This book works on 99.9% of the people if they'll read it. Now, it will not work on somebody that's crazy. It will not work on somebody who's got a problem with their hardwiring.
Right.
It's because they can't identify with any of these things that this book talks about. But otherwise, if you're a normal human being, that book will be of a benefit to you. It will teach you how to deal with other people in a way that they will respond to you in a positive way, which is exactly what you want, right?
In the coming weeks, Gary, and coming months, we're going to dive into these books, and we're going to talk about the chapters, the things that's made a real difference to you and me. We're going to go through them together. We would love for our friends to join us. We're going to make sure that we give you every opportunity to get with us, whether it's on the radio, television, Facebook, while we're doing the program live, YouTube. If you go to the website and get it, we're going to give you all the options that you can study with us, and we can review, and we'll start reviewing with this book about the difference it has made.
It is our chance at my age, for me, to give back. And I'm going to try to do my best to do it, because I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, but I've learned a lot from them. So folks, stay with us, okay?
Gary at GaryCJohnson.com if you'd like to leave a message for Gary, and tune us in again next week, right here at this same time.
Thank you for watching Simply the Law of Life, a program created by attorney Gary C. Johnson. Until next week, may you be safe, blessed, and happy.
If you're hurt, injured, don't waste time. Gary Johnson cries for every dime.
I'm Gary C. Johnson. You've seen these billboards and ads that say size matters. I agree. The size that matters is the size of the results the law firm gets for their clients. We have several multi-million-dollar verdicts here in Kentucky. In fact, our firm owns the record for the single largest personal injury verdict in the state of Kentucky. That's the size that matters to you. In Kentucky, give our firm the call.